evening, depending upon when you are watching this video. Earlier, we had some of the audio lectures in relation to the basic concepts and definitions of Income Tax Act 1961. After the series of audio lectures, before moving ahead to the next chapter or next topic, rates of tax and computation of tax liability, let us quickly recapitulate what has been discussed in the first chapter, and not only that, let us check whether the learning outcomes of this chapter are achieved or not. So, what are the learning outcomes of this chapter according to ICAI, and let us see whether we achieved those outcomes or not. So, one way you can say this is a quick revision or snapshot of the topics that we already discussed through audio lectures. So, what were we supposed to learn in this topic? First, we should have achieved the comprehension capacity for understanding the meaning of tax and types of taxes. So, definitely meaning of tax and types of taxes, hopefully all of us know now, because we discussed extensively about these words: what is tax, what is duty, what is cess, and what is the difference between them, what are the commonalities between them. The terminology, though it is not defined by law, the concepts of those things we already discussed in the earlier audio lectures. So, first outcome achieved. Then, after the completion of this chapter, we should be knowing the difference between direct taxes and indirect taxes. Once again, hopefully we all know that what is the difference between direct taxes and indirect taxes by now, since we already discussed these differences earlier. And also we have taken examples of the direct taxes, rather tax at a central government level. The only direct tax remaining now is income tax, whereas gift tax and wealth tax used to be there earlier, which are abolished now, and indirect taxes are there still in many names and many forms, both at central and state government levels, even at local authority levels. Of course, our syllabus does not require us to focus on anything that is at a state level or local authority level. Naturally, our focus will be on the laws, on the acts, on the taxes that are levied by central government. So, income tax is the direct tax levied by central government. Excise duty, central excise duty, particularly on diesel and petrol, is levied by central government. Customs duty is levied by central government on the goods which are imported, and GST is also levied by central government. Of course, a portion of that is also levied by state government, but GST is also an example of indirect taxes. These are all indirect taxes, and various types of direct and indirect taxes we discussed, and we should clearly know the distinction between direct and indirect taxes. Direct taxes are those the burden of which cannot be transferred to somebody else. Indirect taxes are those the burden of which can be transferred to somebody else. So that is the basic difference between these two. Direct taxes are progressive in nature, indirect taxes are regressive in nature. All these things with detailed examples and explanation we have discussed in the earlier audio sessions. So that outcome is achieved. Then another outcome is to know the components of income tax law. What are the components of income tax law? That also we discussed. And you should remember all of them. There are different components of income tax law, namely Income Tax Act 1961, Income Tax Rules 1962, Annual Finance Acts, and circulars and notifications issued by central government as well as CBDT. CBDT means Central Board of Direct Taxes, and the judgments given by the various courts, particularly High Court and Supreme Court. We can call them simply case laws. Also we can just call them the court judgments. If we want to use a big word for that, we can call them judicial pronouncements. All of them are part of income tax law in India. And we also discussed the distinction between a law and act. Law is a broader word, act is only a part of it. Though it is not defined anywhere, we understood this terminology which will be useful in the next learning process as well. So when we use the word law, that is a broader term. For example, family law, for example, environmental law, labor law, corporate law, all these things are broader words which may include many acts, and not only acts, which may also include many other rules, circulars, judgments, all these things as part of the law. So law is a broader word, act is only a particular statute which has been passed by the Parliament of India. That distinction also we discussed earlier. In addition to this, one of the other outcomes is to comprehend the procedure for computation of total income. Of course, are we computing the total income now? Answer is no. We are not performing the journey yet. We are only at the stage where we at least should have the map in hand. And what is that map? That map is the procedure for computation of total income. Actual computation of total income, that we will do later. That is actually the climax. But before reaching there, at least should we know the direction, should we know the steps involved in reaching to the destination? Definitely yes. For that purpose, we need to always keep in mind what is the procedure, overall procedure, steps involved in computation of total income. And you need to remember this also. What are the steps? Basically, to start with, determination of residential status, then computation of income of the SSC, where from that income is earned, depending upon that, identifying which head of income under which the income is taxable. So we need to compute income of the SSC arising from different heads of income. So after the determination of residential status, different heads of incomes related provisions have to be applied. And what are the heads of income? And don't create any new things. These are legal things. The heads of income are 5 and 5 only. In the same sequence they have to be remembered also. Sequence cannot be changed. Sequence of learning can be changed, that is our choice. But the sequence in which these heads of income have to be presented in the examination while we compute the total income cannot be changed. The same sequence they have to be presented with. And what is the sequence? Salaries, then income from house property, then profits and gains of business or profession, also we popularly call it as PGBP, then capital gains, then income from other sources. After all the 5 heads of incomes have been applied and the income coming from different heads of income is aggregated, which is nothing but totaled, then 2 special things might have to be done if they are applicable. What are those 2 special things? One, clubbing provisions will have to be applied if applicable. Though we don't apply them now, that's a separate chapter which will come in the end. But we should know what is clubbing provisions. Clubbing means mixing, adding up, blending. All these things are some of the meanings of clubbing. So, what are the situations where the clubbing provisions are applicable will be dealt with in that chapter. But basically, should we know what is clubbing? Yes. What is clubbing? Income of other persons included in the income of SSE. In other words, income is earned by somebody else, but it is not taxable in the hands of that somebody else. Rather, it is taxable in the hands of SSE. Looks very awkward, looks very variety, definitely yes, but that is not normal. Under certain particular circumstances, such clubbing provisions will apply. When they apply, they have to be definitely applied. So that is one more thing after the heads of income are calculated. Then there may be set off and carry forward of losses. If there are losses, can that loss be set off against the profits or not? Of course, will be once again detailed in that particular chapter when we reach there. But right now, we only should know the terminology. What is the meaning of set off? Set off is nothing but adjusting. There is one negative income, there is one positive income. Can we adjust them both? Yes or no? Answer we don't know now. We will come to know in that chapter. If it is allowed, yes, we will do the set off. If it is not allowed, then there is no possibility of set off. Who will tell that? The Act will tell that. And those provisions where the Act tells us whether set off is permissible or not, whether carry forward of losses to the future years is permissible or not, all those things are contained in set off and carry forward provisions. And these are also applicable only if there are losses. So if there is a clubbing provisions applicable, we should apply them. If there are set off carry forward provisions applicable, we should apply them. After doing all this, what we get is called as gross total income. Gross total income is that which is before giving deductions under section 80. So, before chapter 6a deductions, whatever the income of the SSE is, that is called as gross total income. After the gross total income is calculated, we have to deduct section 80 deductions. Section 80 deductions are also called as chapter 6a deductions. After doing those deductions, also what we get is the total income, and that's what is the taxable income. And after the computation of total income, the final step is to compute tax liability, applying the rates of tax which are applicable for a particular assessment year. This is the overall steps that were involved in the computation of total income of the SSC. Determination of residential status, classification of income under different heads, computation of income under each head, then clubbing provisions if applicable, then set off and carry forward. What we get is called gross total income. Yellow deductions from gross total income. What we get is called total income. Once we calculated the total income, then the tax liability part will come. Tax liability will have to be calculated on the basis of total income, on the basis of rates of tax which are applicable. That rates of tax we have not yet discussed, that we will discuss later. Now, this is the map that we have in hand, which is telling us the procedure for computation of total income, and hopefully we know now what is the procedure for it. Are we really aware of how to do that? No. We are only aware of the headings. We are only aware of the chapters that we are going to study. Simply speaking, that is what is procedure for computation of total income. Then we have tried to understand the meaning of various terms used in the Income Tax Act. There also we have distinguished between some of the conceptual things and which are definitions also as particularly defined by Income Tax Act. Irrespective of that, definitely what we are supposed to know is the meaning of various terms. Like what? For example, SSC. Who is an SSC? We discussed that. And who is a person? We discussed that. Income. We did not define that, but rather we tried to understand the concept of income. What are the features of income? Of course, there was a definition of India in the Act that we discussed. The definitions of assessment year and previous year were also discussed already. The definition of assessment is not required specially. The name itself indicates what is an assessment. That is a procedure of assessing the income of the SSC. That is a procedure of calculating, computing the income of the SSC. Simply speaking, that's what is assessment. Does not require a big discussion. But definition of SSC particularly is important. Definition of person is important. Definition of India, definition of assessment year and previous year are important. Income definition is so big that nobody can ask it as a question. Income definition itself will cover the entire Income Tax Act. That is why we have not touched that now. But we try to understand the features of income or concept of income by going through various points related to how the income should be and how the income should not be. In other words, what items can be treated as income, what items cannot be treated as income. We discussed it in the earlier sessions. And the next learning outcome also is already what we already talked about. That is recognizing assessment year and previous year. And even you have done an assignment on this. Your task in relation to determining and recognizing the previous year and assessment year is also part of already what we have learned, and that's a good exercise you all have done. That is very important as well, because clarity on what is the previous year, what is the assessment year is must. That is the ABCD of Income Tax Act. That should be known to everybody, and hopefully all of you know that now. Then also another learning outcome is where the exceptions to the general rule are applicable. In other words, the circumstances when the income of previous year would be assessed to tax in the previous year itself. These are exceptions to the general rule, where normally income of previous year is subjected to tax in assessment year. That is general rule. But exceptions will tell us where the income of previous year is assessed to tax in previous year itself. And we have seen those exceptions. You need to be very cautiously remembering them also, and this is a very important theory question from this chapter, repeated many number of times in past examinations. What are those exceptions? 1. Shipping business of a non-resident. 2. Persons leaving India indefinitely. 3. AOP or BOI formed for a particular purpose or particular event or for a particular period of time, which is a shorter period of time than a year. Then 4, a person transferring the property for avoidance of tax, if the assessing officer is of the opinion that such transfer can happen, that also is one of the circumstances where income from such property can be assessed to tax in the hands of the potential transferor in the previous year itself. And then the 5th one is discontinued business. Discontinued business also is one exception, and that is one of the cases where income of such discontinued business can be subjected to tax in the previous year itself. We discussed. So basically the learning outcomes of this chapter are all these things, and we have successfully discussed all these things, applied all these things wherever possible, and hopefully all of you have understood these things in a very thorough manner. Of course, there is one more thing here, applying the rates of tax. We will definitely discuss that also, but we will consider that as a separate topic, which involves both calculations and understanding of provisions. Another point to note, so far we have been communicating through audio mode. Going forward, starting with rates of tax, we have to communicate with video also, where you have to see how these calculations are done. Since there is no whiteboard that I can write and you can see, I will write or I will show on the system where you can see that, watch that simultaneously when you are listening to what I am talking about. So audio lecture days are almost finished. Now going forward, starting from this video as a precursor to the next videos, we are entering into level 2 of this web learning, distance learning process, we can say, where video lectures will be sent to you. In these video lectures, whatever the material that you need to refer to will be there on the screen, and you need to go through that along with simultaneously listening to the explanation that is being given by me. So such experience will be definitely started with the discussion on rates of tax, which is going to be the next session. The purpose of this session is to ensure whether we have achieved the outcomes of this chapter or not. And definitely answer should be yes, we should have achieved the learning outcomes, since we discussed all these things in detail through our previous audio lectures. And the same thing has been given here as a chapter overview. Once again, more or less the same thing. What are all the components of income tax law? These are all the components of income tax law. And what are all the definitions? What are the steps? What is the process for computation of total income? These are all the things that we have discussed. What we are yet to discuss, what we are still to be doing is this part, wherein the charge of income tax and rates of income tax are yet to be discussed. We will definitely go through them also in the coming classes. That's it. That is about the first chapter related to basic concepts and definitions. Now, there are many other aspects which are also there in the ICA material, and as I told you, some of you, hopefully all of you, should have been going through these things in a generic manner without really worrying about each and every word, sentence, full stop, comma. So understanding the essence of various terminology is already done, but when you go through this ICAI material, that will give an additional information, additional knowledge about certain things which may not be really required all of the times, but still something else will be also added to your existing knowledge. Like for example, who has the power to levy taxes in India? All these things are given here. That is all general knowledge. And what are the three types of lists that are there in the Constitution of India? Union list, state list, concurrent list. This is all general knowledge. So I suggest you to go through ICAI material also, not just stopping the learning process by listening to the audio lectures. Audio lectures definitely are going to give you a fairly good idea about all these things, but reading ICAI material, as I already said earlier, reading is a very important aspect of learning process. So don't lose that habit. Read the ICAI material, whether in the physical form or electronic form, as per your convenience. That doesn't matter. If physical form it is not available, some of you might not have received the books, then you cannot stop, or I don't have books. All these things cannot work. If you don't have books, you have this. You go through this. You can go through the chapter very thoroughly. All of them, or most of them, which are all important, have been already discussed. If they are not discussed, they are left with a purpose. Either they are very generic in nature, anybody can just read and understand, or they may not be really very relevant for learning process of income tax. Neither they are important from examination point of view. Only those areas we would have left something. So keeping that in mind, again, you better go through this ICAI material in relation to first chapter. But most of the areas, even though not in detail, we have definitely discussed are the overall meaning of them. For example, this, a section, what is a section, what is a subsection, what is a clause and subclause. We had a quick discussion on that. And what are provisos and what are explanations, that also we have discussed earlier. These are all the things. Wherever it is relevant, wherever it is very important, we definitely had a discussion on that. There is no need to know what are all the parts of Finance Act and all. We are not going to be finance ministers in the near future. So this is general knowledge. Where it is just general knowledge, we just left it. And these are all headings are enough. Income tax rules 1962, enough. No need of all these details. Circulars, notifications, that's name itself is enough. Nobody needs an explanation of the word circular, notification. Both are self-explanatory. Case laws is nothing but judgments of the courts. Like this, there are particularly some things that you should remember, and there is an important note here as we are going through. This also I told you verbally. This is where ICAI also is giving a commitment in writing. Case laws are dealt with at the final level. So don't worry about the court judgments and all at this level. At intermediate level, case laws are not that important. So our focus mostly will be on the Income Tax Act, not on the case laws. Of course, that does not mean we never apply case laws. We do apply very rarely. Maybe the entire syllabus we have 3 to 4 case laws that might be applicable for problem solving purposes. Other than that, normally case laws are not so important at this level. That is about the ICAI materials descriptions. Then this process of computation of income is given. Step 1, determination of residency status. Then step 2, step 3, like this, all these things are given in the ICAI material. These are the same steps that we discussed. Once again, if you go through the details of them, you may not be able to understand right now, because these are all actually contained in separate chapters. So all that we need to know now is a broader outlook. This is what we need now. This diagram is enough. No need to go through the details of each of them. That is not required. And rates of tax, as I said, will be discussed later, and important definitions. Also, you can just quickly go through, though some of them crucial things we already discussed. For example, definition of SSE. Assessment does not require a separate explanation. It is a procedure by which the income of an SSE is determined by the assessing officer. That is assessment. We discussed the definition of person. Very importantly, overall part of the definition of person: individual, HUF, company, firm, AOP, BOI, local authority, artificial juridical person. Each of them has a separate explanation. We don't need really all of this, but again, for general knowledge purposes, you can go through this additional information given that is in the ICAI material. Once again, my suggestion is for you to go through the ICAI material, but not to do any research on that, not to think about each and every term about what are all there in this, because you will not be able to understand each and every term now until and unless we completed the learning process of income tax. So only read the ICAI material for a broader knowledge. For specific knowledge, whatever that specific topics which are discussed in the audio lectures earlier would be more than enough. There your focus should be more than on knowing what is the meaning of this particular term, what is a municipal committee, I never heard about it. We don't care what is a municipal committee. There is something called municipal committee. It is part of local authority. So what's the big deal in that? So these are the areas where our brain should not even really focus much or waste time on. What is a district board? I never heard of it. Okay, you did not hear about it. I also did not hear about it. So what? So it doesn't matter. So these are all just very general things. There is no particular application for them also. There is no particular usefulness for them also. So don't worry about these things. So just go through them in general. That's all. Just like a novel. I understand, I don't understand. Doesn't matter. Just like that you go through them. That is what ICAI material can do to you. It gives some delta, some additional information to you, some additional knowledge to you. Definitely yes. And most importantly, it inculcates reading habit in you, and that is very important for income tax learning. That is the reason I ask you or suggest you to go through the ICAI material as well. But while reading, while going through ICAI material, you have to be careful in our approach also. We cannot have word to word, line to line understanding. That is not possible. Is the essence understood? Enough. Done. Move on to next thing. That's it. What is co-legatees, what is co-donees, it doesn't matter. Who cares about all this? So just go through them. Just go through the overall essence of each of these points. And once again, we are not talking about provisions here. You have to always keep a difference between them. Let us say ICAI material talked about Hindu undivided family, what is Daya Bhaga, what is Mitakshara. These are all practically there. These are all there in reality. But how they are relevant for us, very less relevant. So we might not have discussed that in our lectures intentionally, because you can anyway go through them and you can just anyway understand them. And the point once more to note is, even if you don't understand, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You just move on to the next point. So like this, your approach towards ICAI material has to be a very intense, at the same time should not be very deep. Again I am repeating, your approach should be intense, but it should not be deep. Once you are entering into the depth of this, I am very confident it will take 2 to 3 years for anybody to really understand each and everything. So that much time we don't have. So simply speaking, go through the ICAI material, read the ICAI material. I never said be thorough with each and everything. Yes, what are the things you are supposed to be thorough with? Those which have been discussed, those which have been already taught to you. Those areas you have to be thorough. Those areas you listen to the audio lectures again and again, become thorough. No problem. Read the same points again and again, become thorough. No problem. But I want something else which is irrelevant, which is completely useless, then that is a waste of time. That is where the point comes. So don't worry too much about it. I am giving already examples of what not to do while reading. What happens. That is how the brain works. Let us say somebody reads this artificial juridical person. So what does it mean? Like for example, an idol is an artificial juridical person. So suddenly doubt will come. So our idol means all the deities are also artificial juridical person. Tirumala Tirupati Venkateswara Swami is an artificial juridical person or not? Question will come. Answer is yes. But my point is, such doubt is irrelevant for us. Because like this there will be hundreds of realities. Our doubt is only restricting to one of those realities. So that is not what we are interested in or what we should be interested in much. Yes, there will be good questions in relation to application of law. However, there should be a constrained approach also when we talk about certain words. They will give a lot of items like this which are really useful in actual life. That too, in particular circumstances, they may not be relevant for us at all from our learning process, nor they are important from examination point of view. So those areas we just have to go through them and just move on. Okay, this particular point, what it is telling, okay, an idol also could be an artificial juridical person, possible or not? Yes, an idol is also possibly a artificial juridical person, so be it. A deity is also possibly an artificial juridical person, so be it. That's all. There is nothing much to research about it. What about Tirumala Tirupati? What about Bhadrachalam? What about Ayodhya? What about some other temple? What about Kasi? No discussion required. That is all not what we are interested in. That we should not be interested in. That is what I meant to say. So restriction on the thought process when it comes to the ICA material reading is very important. And as I told, the definition of income, my suggestion is don't even read that. You will not understand anything. So that is not going to be useful much. And even the concept of income given in the ICA material also will understand when we really reach those chapters. So the concept of capital receipt, revenue receipt, all these things are too early for us to be understanding at this point of time. So these are some of the areas. If you really have patience, interest and English language vocabulary grip, you can just generally go through them without giving much of importance to the understandability of them. Then it's okay. If these are the things which are making you think that, oh, tax is very complex subject, oh, tax is very difficult, then this is I would suggest that don't even read them. So that should not be the mindset. The mindset should be very open. It should be just about, okay, there is something given, let us go through that. Okay, we'll come to know. When the time comes, anyway, we'll come to know all of these things. Right now, we are only just at the beginning of the learning process of income tax. That clarity should be always there. Then definition of India we already have discussed. Average rate and maximum marginal rate we did not discuss because we can discuss these two things only after we understand the rates of tax. Previous year assessment year we discussed already. Examples also we have taken. And very importantly, what are the various sections in relation to undisclosed sources of income? This is another area that we already discussed. Undisclosed sources of income 68, 69, 69A, 69B, 69C and 69D. All of them have already been discussed in the earlier session. Very important in terms of theory question. Then exceptions to the general rule, already we discussed that. Those are all given explanation also here. There is one more additional points which are given. Whatever additional points are given, as I said, just keep them somewhere in the brain. Don't worry about them. Don't really give too much of focus to them. Examples definitely are useful. You can read them. Those are all self-explanatory. They can be understood very easily, which are given here. Then charge of income tax we did not discuss. Rates of income tax we did not discuss. These are all the things that we will definitely come to at a later stage. So this is the essence of chapter number 1, except rates of tax, which we will discuss in the upcoming lectures. So these are all the points that we have to discuss in the next session in relation to the rates of tax. And the questions at the end of the chapter are there. Of course, those are all some of them direct questions. So who is an SSC is a definition of SSC. Automatically you have to just copy paste that. And what are the instances where income of previous year is assessable in the previous year itself instead of assessment year? Same, there are 5 instances, all those 5 can be written. That is the chapter number 1, and the recapitulation part also is having very similar things whatever we have already discussed and hopefully understood in this chapter. That's it. With the understanding of this, we will conclude this particular chapter. However, before going to the conclusion of this, let us quickly go through what are the solutions in relation to the income tax assignment that is given with the multiple choice questions. The answers to those multiple choice questions, you can note them down now, and you can check your answers also with that and find out how many answers you have actually marked correctly. So quickly go through the answers of MCQ, test or assignment or task, whatever you call it, which has been given to you this morning. Question number 1. Which of the following is not included in the taxable income. The question is not included in the taxable income. So answers are given. Income from smuggling activity, should it be included or not? By now we should know already that even if income is illegal, that is included. So it does not form part of this. Is casual income includable in the taxable income? Answer is yes. Any type of income also is includable, not necessarily income which is earned recurring. Even though income which has just like that casually arisen also, it is includable. Income received in kind, is it includable? Yes. These three things we know. What we don't know is this. What is that? Gifts of personal nature not exceeding 50,000 rupees received in cash. Do we know anything related to this? By now, we never discussed any provision. I know that. We don't know what is the provisions related to gift. Nothing we know. But does it mean we cannot answer this question? Again, no. We should be able to answer this question by knowing other three items, not by knowing the C. By knowing smuggling activity income is includable, by knowing casual income is includable, income received in kind is includable. All these three we know that we discussed earlier already. So automatically by elimination process, what will be the income which is not includable in the total taxable income? That is the gifts of personal nature not exceeding 50,000 rupees received in cash. So whatever that may be, when we reach to the chapter of income from other sources, when we discuss about the gifts related provisions, then we will discuss about it. Till that time we don't need to know what it is, but all that we need to know is A, B and D are definitely included in the total taxable income of the SSC. That is first question. Answer can be obtained by elimination process only, not by knowing that correct answer is C. However, we definitely should know that A, B and D are not correct answers. That is how question number 1 can be answered. Then question number 2. An exercise undertaken to minimize tax liability through the best use of all available allowances, deductions, exclusions, exemptions, etc. to reduce the income tax liability is known as tax planning. There also some people will say, sir, we never told what it is. No, nobody used to tell that. Is it tax evasion? Is it a good word? Evasion. Tax avoidance. Is it a good word? Tax dodging. Is it a good word? All three are bad words. Not good. But if an SSC is doing an exercise by the best use of allowances, who is giving allowances? Act is giving allowances. So SSC is not doing anything illegal. He is not avoiding the tax. He is not evading the tax. He is using the allowances given by the act only. He is using the deductions given by the act only. He is using the exemptions given by the act only. So whatever he is doing is a legal activity, very good activity. That's what chartered accountants are supposed to guide their clients, and that activity is called as tax planning. So here also general knowledge, common sense is enough to answer this question, whether we know these words or not. These words themselves are telling us they are all negative things, not good things. Only one good thing here is tax planning. Then question number 3 is a direct question. The year in which the income is earned is known as previous year. Naturally, the year in when it is taxable is known as assessment year. So this is the straightforward question. Question number 3, answer is A. Question number 4, answer is D, because A included only individuals, B had only individual and HUF, C has individual, HUF, firm, company, D has everything, wherever the person definition has defined different types of people. Who are all those? Individual, HUF, company, firm, AOP or BOI, local authority, and every other artificial juridical person. So entire definition of person is given as option D. So obviously that will be the correct choice. So question number 4, correct answer is D, Delhi. Then question number 5 is also direct thing. We discussed it earlier. Every SSC is a person, but every person need not be an SSC. This we discussed earlier. Every SSC is a person, because without being a person, somebody cannot be an SSC. Why? Because definition of SSC starts with person. Each line of the definition of SSC starts with the word person, person, person. So definitely every SSC must be a person. However, reverse is not true. Every person need not be an SSC. So correct answer is B, Bombay. Then sixth question is a little case based type question. Describe the status of the following person, whether he is an individual, HUF, firm, company, whatever that may be. For example, X and Y are legal heirs of Z. X and Y are legal heirs of Z. Z died somewhere in 2014. X and Y are carrying on his business without entering into partnership. So what is the legal status? What is the status of this following business, whatever is happening? So question, can we call them a firm? No. Why? Because they did not enter into any partnership. When there is not a firm, how can it be LLP? Not possible. So that is not a limited liability partnership. How can it be a company? They did not register any company. So all these things are definitely to be formed either by entering into a deed here or by legal process in these two cases compulsorily. But whereas body of individuals is something, there need not be any registration, there need not be any legal procedure. Automatically any two or more persons can form together an organization, and that can be called as body of individuals. So in this case, what are X, Y together called as? You may say they are brothers and all. No, in legal terms they are called body of individuals. They are not partners, they are not limited liability partners, they are not shareholders, they are called body of individuals. Then question number 7, assessment year can be a period of only 12 months. There is no way that assessment year can be a shorter one or a longer one. So direct question, answer is C. Question number 8, year in which the income is taxable is known as dash, and the year in which the income is earned is known as dash. So when the year is income is taxable is called as assessment year. Year in which the income is earned is known as previous year. Direct question this also. Answer is B, Bombay. Then question number 9, all assessees are required to follow what? They are all required to follow uniform previous year, which must be financial year only. Can they follow a calendar year? Not possible. Can they follow any period of 12 months? Not possible. Can they follow a period starting from 1st July to 30th June, like Ernst&Young or some other organization, for example? Not possible. So these are all their choices. According to their choices, they can close their books of accounts. But as far as Income Tax Act is concerned, we don't care about their choices. Everybody has to follow financial year only. No option. So answer is B, Bombay. Question number 10. The first previous year in case of a business or profession newly set up on 31st March 2019. What would be the previous year? It will start from 31st March 2019. It will end on 31st March 2019. So we took the example even in our explanations earlier. Same thing has been given as a question also. So previous year could be one day also, not necessarily a year, not necessarily a period of 12 months. Previous year can be less than 12 months, as smaller as one day. In this example, previous year is only one day, but it can never be more than 12 months. So not at all possible in all the other options. Only it will start also and end also on the same day, that is 31st March 2019 in this case. That is question number 10. Question number 11. A person follows a calendar year for accounting. For taxation, what he should do? We can say actually, as far as accounting is concerned, Baba, you can follow whatever you want. It is your choice. But as far as taxation is concerned, it is not your choice. It is choice of the law. And what the law says? Law says they have to follow financial year only. That is 1st April to 31st March. No option. Right? That is question number 11. Then question number 12. In which of the following cases income of previous year is assessable in the previous year itself? First one is true itself. Assessment of persons leaving India forever. Is it part of the exceptions to the general rule? Answer is yes. All others are there as part of exceptions? Answer is no. So they are all not correct answers. Only option A is correct. All others are not correct. So that is question number 12, talking about income of previous year taxable in the previous year itself. Question number 13 is also on the similar lines, but this is covering all of the above. In which of the following cases assessing officer has the discretion to assess the income of previous year in the previous year itself? In all the cases, shipping business of non-resident, assessment of AOP or BOA formed for a particular event or purpose, assessment of persons likely to transfer the property to avoid tax. So all of the cases where assessing officer has the discretion to assess the income of the previous year in previous year itself. So answer is all of the above, that is option D. Then what is the basic source of income tax law? Here also all of the above is the correct option, because source of income tax law is Income Tax Act also, circulars also, judgments of courts also. So all of the above is ideally the correct option. But I give a benefit of doubt if somebody has answered this with option A. Why? Because of the word basic source. Basic source is definitely Income Tax Act 1961 only, but it is not the only source. So A is also a correct option if you have written. D is also a correct option if you have written that. Either way, you can give yourselves one correct answer. But I would say D is a better option, because all of them are sources only. What is basic, what is not basic, we are not the ones to decide. So as an exceptional case, we can even call A also as a correct option. Then domestic company, once again, directly the definition. What is a domestic company? It is an Indian company. Of course, every Indian company automatically is a domestic company. And not only that, even a foreign company which has made prescribed arrangements for the declaration and payment of dividends in India also will be called as a domestic company. So that is the definition of it. So C is the correct option for question number 15. So check your answers once again. C, B, A, D, B, D, C, B, 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 A, D, D, C. These are the options, these are the answers for your questions. So you can definitely check your answers with this key and find out how many questions you are able to attempt and answer correctly, right? With that, we can conclude chapter number 1, and in the next chapter we will discuss about the rates of tax and computation of tax liability of the assessees using those rates of tax and taxable income of the assessees. So until then, bye bye, take care, stay home, stay safe, bye.